Welcome to the Crimson Dossier. Every case has a file. Not every file has answers.
The USSR's youngest serial killer, a 14-year-old predator in Stalin's Soviet Union. Sverdlovsk, 1938. One of Stalin's model industrial cities, a place of factories, 5-year plans, and parades celebrating Soviet progress. But in the yards, in the parks, in the spaces between the apartment blocks where children played, something was very wrong. Children were going missing, and when they were found, what remained of them was almost too disturbing to process. Police had no suspect, no motive they could understand, no precedent in Soviet criminology to guide them. What they didn't know, what no one on those streets could have imagined, was that the killer lived among them. He went to school, he studied music, he helped his mother when she was sick. He was 16 years old. This is the case of Vladimir Vinnichevsky, and it remains one of the most disturbing criminal cases in Soviet history.
Sverdlovsk, known today as Yekaterinburg, was a city built on industrial ambition. In the late 1930s, it was expanding rapidly, full of workers' families packed into communal apartments and newly constructed blocks. Life was regimented, collective, public. Privacy barely existed, which makes what happened here all the more unsettling. Vladimir Vinnichevsky was born on June 8, 1923, in the nearby town of Verkhnaya Salda. His father worked at the musical comedy theater. His mother, Yelizaveta, was a homemaker. By all outward appearances, an ordinary Soviet family. Vladimir was a sickly child. Pneumonia, whooping cough, measles. He started school late, at age 9, due to his health problems. He fell behind academically, repeating years twice, so that by the time of his arrest at 16, he was still only in 7th grade. His mother later described him as withdrawn, quiet, not particularly social. He had few friends his own age but showed what she called a strong affection for small children, toddlers and preschoolers. Specifically, he would play with the young children in their building, tickling them, making them laugh. She said she didn't think anything of it. In 1938, when Vladimir was 14, his mother took him to see a doctor for neurological complaints, problems with his memory, she said. The physician attributed it to adolescence. Treatment was prescribed, a course of electrotherapy. But Vladimir refused to attend the sessions. That same year, the children of Sverdlovsk began to disappear. The first known victim was a 5-year-old girl named Jera Gribanova. She lived at number 19 on Pervomayskaya Street, the same street as the Vinnichevsky family. Neighbors, essentially. On June 12, 1938, she vanished. Her body was found 4 days later, hidden in a bird cherry bush, covered with a coat and large leaves. She had been strangled and stabbed multiple times. The injuries went beyond anything investigators had encountered in a homicide case. Jera had been mutilated post-mortem. She was 5 years old. Over the following 16 months, at least 17 more children were attacked in and around Sverdlovsk. The youngest victims were toddlers. Most were under the age of 6. The method was consistent. A young man would approach a child alone or slightly separated from their caretaker, lure them away with sweets or kindness, lead them to a secluded location, and then assault and kill them. The city descended into fear. Parents stopped letting children play outside alone. Patrols were established. The local newspaper, Uralsky Rabichi, ran warnings. Soviet authorities, who were not inclined to publicize violent crime, it contradicted the image of the orderly, safe socialist society, were nonetheless forced to acknowledge publicly that something was very wrong. And still the attacks continued. October 24, 1939, early afternoon, military cadets on patrol near the Ural heavy machinery plant, UZTM, noticed a young man stepping off a tram. He was walking toward a wooded area. He was holding the hand of a small boy. Something felt wrong. The cadets followed. They lost him briefly in the trees, then found him again by following footprints in the earth and scattered items of children's clothing. What they found when they caught up stopped them cold. Vladimir Vinnichevsky, 16 years old, had already removed the child's coat and hat. He had his hands around the boy's throat. The child, a boy named Slava, not yet 3 years old, was in shock. He wasn't even crying. The marks of fingernails were visible on his neck. Vinnichevsky was apprehended on the spot. He was taken in for questioning that same day, and he confessed immediately to everything. What emerged in interrogation over the following days became the evidentiary backbone of one of the most disturbing criminal case files ever compiled in the Soviet Union. 4 volumes, 1,093 pages, still held today in the State Archive of Sverdlovsk Oblast. Many sections remain restricted to protect surviving victims and their families. Vinnichevsky described his crimes in clinical, matter-of-fact terms. He explained his motivations without apparent remorse or confusion. He said he received sexual gratification from the attacks, from the undressing, from physical contact, from the act of strangling, and from using a knife on his victims. He said he had no experience of or interest in adult relationships. He described targeting small children, specifically young enough to be led away without resistance, young enough to be physically overpowered. He had been carrying sweets in his pocket on the day of his arrest. Also, sheet music. He had been studying music. In his room, investigators found handwritten notes. His mother identified them after his arrest. To this day, researchers believe they were a form of personal log, records, in some coded or abbreviated form, of his attacks. At the time of his arrest, Vinnichevsky confessed to 12 attacks. During the subsequent investigation, the total number of victims was established at no fewer than 18. For Soviet criminal investigators in the late 1930s, Vinnichevsky represented something they had almost no framework to understand. Serial sexual homicide as a category of crime was barely theorized in Western criminology at this point, let alone in the Soviet Union, where the official ideological position held that such crimes were products of capitalist moral decay, not something that could emerge from a healthy socialist society. The investigators had to confront reality. The case file reflects genuine efforts to understand Vinnichevsky psychologically. Medical examinations were conducted. His developmental history was documented. His mother was interviewed extensively. What emerges is a portrait of a child who showed early signs that were, in retrospect, alarming, though none that any individual adult in his life would necessarily have. Identified as precursors to violence, he was withdrawn. He showed unusual interest in very young children. He had refused medical treatment. He had reportedly buried a dog with other neighborhood children at the age of 3, though whether the animal was already dead was never clarified. He had also been observed by his mother to engage in behavior with the young children in his building that she described as innocent play, tickling, making them laugh. She said she thought nothing of it. By 1963, the New Zealand psychiatrist John MacDonald would formalize what became known as the MacDonald Triad, a set of 3 behavioral markers: cruelty to animals, fire setting, and bedwetting, proposed as potential early indicators of violent predisposition. Vinnichevsky's case predates that framework by 25 years. But the questions his case raises about early identification, about the limits of what families and communities can recognize, and about what intervention might look like, those questions remain relevant today. Vladimir Vinnichevsky was tried in early 1940. The Soviet legal system at the time did not, as a rule, apply the death penalty to offenders under 18. But exceptions existed, and the scope and nature of his crimes, the number of victims, the age of those victims, the deliberate and repeated nature of the violence, placed his case outside any ordinary sentencing consideration. He was sentenced to death. A note in the case file, quoted in subsequent historical accounts of the case, reflects the verdict's framing in ideological terms. There can be no life in the Soviet family for such degenerates. Quote, Vladimir Vinnichevsky was executed by firing squad. He was 17 years old. The case was not widely publicized at the time. A brief notice appeared in Uralsky Rabichi in November 1939, following the arrest, but detailed public reporting was suppressed. The 4-volume case file sat in the Sverdlovsk archive for decades. It was only in the post-Soviet period that researchers began to examine it seriously and to recognize it for what it was: the documented case of the youngest serial killer in the history of the Soviet Union. The case of Vladimir Vinnichevsky doesn't offer clean answers. It offers something harder, a reminder that the most disturbing human behavior doesn't require darkness or chaos to emerge. Sometimes it walks out of a tram in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of a busy city, and leads a child by the hand toward the trees. The file is closed. We'll see you next time on the Crimson Dossier.